Very open question. What were your reflections on yesterday? Maybe I'll start with Ben.
Well, overall, my reflection is of sadness, actually. I know there are various emotions people have expressed, from anger through to sort of, disappointment in the way the Met Police acted and so on. But my overall emotion is sadness. Sadness that on a day when we should be commemorating those who died for our freedom, actually we were facing mayhem in Westminster all the way from the beginning of the event, which for me started at about 10:15, and you could hear the chants of what are described as far-right people coming to Westminster to make their protests against the counter-protesters, as they were called. And then, of course, the events of the rest of the day, which, to my mind, was not a march for peace in favour of Palestine. To my mind, was an anti-Israeli obliterate Israel march. And so a day which should have been a day of commemoration and remembrance.
Ben, how can you know what was going through the mind of 300,000 people? Some of them may be anti-Israel, and some of them maybe certainly have hate in their hearts, but not all of them.
I can know, because I went to the march. I thought, if I'm going to comment on what goes on, I'm going to go and experience this. And so I stood for about an hour on Hyde Park Corner watching people go past me. And there were basically two chants that were made. The first is that there should be a ceasefire. And the second chant was that there should be a free Palestine from the river to the sea. And that was repeated endlessly. And of course, when you join the dots of those two chants, the first is that Israel, it's not a call for a genuine ceasefire. It's a call for Israel to lay down its arms. It wasn't a call for Hamas to release terrorists or for Hamas to disarm. It was a call for Israel to lay down its arms. And then it was a call to wipe out Israel. And that went repeatedly through the crowd. And not one arrest was made on the back of what I would describe as an incitement to hatred.
But the police say there may well be arrests made. They've taken lots of footage and so on. There are clear things on social media. I mean, there's a disgraceful sign of someone with a swastika inside a Star of David. Absolutely horrendous.
But before we go to John, I just want to say one thing. If that was a genuine march for peace, which I wish it had been, because who doesn't want peace in Gaza, in Israel? We all want peace. But had it been a genuine call for peace, it would have been championing peace. It would have been saying, Hamas, release the hostages. Hamas, remove yourselves from Gaza. Israel, then lay down your arms. For goodness sake, talk to each other. Palestinians, talk to Israelis. Find a two-state solution to this problem. But you don't get peace by advocating the obliteration of a country. That's not a peaceful message.
Jonathan, I'm hearing some sighing from you, I must say, but respond to what Ben says in a second, but first of all, perhaps give me your reflections on yesterday.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't give my reflections without responding to what Ben has said.
Well, I want you to do both, Jonathan.
Well, I think that is a grotesque series of smears that you just made against people. Of course, every decent person wants to see a release of innocent people as hostages. It's the British government's position that that should happen anyway, even if you were going on a protest. A protest is also meant to be not just about something that you believe in, but about a call for action. The government is currently against Hamas, rightly so. It would make no political difference for people to say, release the hostages. What is happening now is a daily intense bombardment of civilians. The hostages, it's a terrible thing what's happening to hostages, but the position is static. It's been they've been there for the last 5 weeks. What is happening now is more people, and you can't deny this, more Palestinian innocent civilians being killed every single day. There is a sense of total desperation. 11,000 people killed as an underestimate, actually, according to a lot of experts, because obviously there are still people buried under the rubble who haven't been counted and identified yet. So this is a call for this fighting, this bombardment to end. It's not a preserve of some niche left-wing opinion, Ben. The President of the French Republic has called for this to happen. This is a mainstream view that the protesters are giving voice to. To say that they're all calling for the obliteration of Israel is a grotesque slander.
Well, it is
against
exactly
the people
what I heard.
Well, it's
repeatedly yesterday.
No, listen. You can ceasefire now. You cannot possibly have a quibble with that. A ceasefire now is not saying that Hamas...
What is a ceasefire, Jonathan?
A ceasefire is that Israel should stop bombing.
That's not a ceasefire.
Hospitals.
A ceasefire is a truce between two combatants.
Obviously, it's a ceasefire.
Hamas will not lay down their arms.
Well, why would you say that? Hamas has ceased.
There was a ceasefire.
When you've had ceasefires in the past, both sides have stopped fighting.
There was a
That's the whole
ceasefire.
point.
Hamas broke the ceasefire on the 7th of October.
Why does saying ceasefire now? Why do you think saying ceasefire now means that you somehow support Hamas? This is such a weird, disingenuous
Because it's not
opinion.
a call for ceasefire.
Well, let Ben answer that point.
Peter, it's not a call for a ceasefire. Jonathan, it's not a call for a ceasefire. It's a call for Israel to lay down its arms. If it was a call for a ceasefire, they would say, Hamas, lay down your arms. Hamas is as anti-Palestinian as the Israelis are. I'd say Hamas has done more damage to the Palestinian cause, more damage to Palestinian lives than any Israeli has.
Well, they haven't just bombarded 11,000 people.
They brought it on Gaza by going into Israel.
I think we have to allow Israel its agency. Hamas had the agency in deciding to kill all those civilians on the 7th of October, and Israel had the agency in deciding to bomb hospitals in the last couple of days. I don't think that we can say, you made me do this thing. You had the decision to do that thing. Hamas had the decision to do that in the 7th of October, and Israel had the decision to do what it has done. So we have to allow people, have to give people agency in the crimes that they commit rather than blaming the other side.
Let Ben respond, Jonathan.
And a call for Israel to lay down its arms unilaterally and then simultaneously call for a free Palestine between the river and the sea is a call for the obliteration of Israel. There will be no peace. There will be no peace. There will be no Palestinian rights observed if that is the approach that people wish to take. What that will do is continue the 70-odd years of conflict that we've seen in the Middle East. There's only one solution to this, and that is for extremism to stop and for people to talk and for Palestinian rights genuinely to be put first. What's happened here is Hamas have been the puppets of an Iranian regime that wanted to destabilise the Middle East when Saudi was on the verge of recognising Israel.
So you don't have any problem with 11,000 people being
I've
killed
got a
in the last
serious
5 weeks?
problem with...
So you don't think that Israel has been totally justified in every
I'm
single
not saying
bomb?
Israel's totally justified.
Well, then why can't we say that Israel should stop doing this?
Because you can't get Israel to unilaterally lay down its arms.
Unilateral is your word. Unilateral is your word.
But there was no call for Hamas to lay down its arms.
Ceasefire now. You are seeking to go inside the minds of the people who are holding that banner and are making that chant, saying you must think that Hamas should be able to continue its rocket fire on Israel and keep the hostages while Israel has to do all the work.
Jonathan,
no one's saying that. A ceasefire means obviously both sides observe it.
The vast majority of people that I saw yesterday, and I stood there for an hour watching people go past me, were clad with their faces in that kind of Palestinian war scarf, threatening. There was a threatening feeling around me. I didn't feel safe. I stood there with my poppy on. I didn't see a single poppy on anyone. No one was observing remembrance.
I saw plenty of poppies in the photographs that I saw.
I didn't. I didn't see a single poppy while I was there, and I feel threatened. It was a call.
Well, I think a lot of people think it's important, Jonathan.
It's not a legal requirement to wear a poppy.
Of course, it's not.
People
But
are entitled to do.
It shows mindset.
They are, but isn't it? Can I just say? I mean, isn't it? Surely on Armistice Day, the greatest. Here's an interesting thing. You may disagree with this, but surely the thing to have done for this march, to say that, I keep hearing Armistice means ceasefire, Armistice Day, we went on this march, this all was to do with wanting a ceasefire. During that 2-minute silence at Hyde Park, and this is only, I'm not talking for 300,000 people, I'm talking for what our reporter saw yesterday, was people not observing the 2-minute silence. Surely, if you're an organiser of that march, the pro-Palestinian march yesterday, you say, we believe in a ceasefire, we believe in peace, therefore we will be observing this 2-minute silence. And that didn't happen at the start of the march in Hyde Park. I'm not talking for 300,000 people, I'm talking about what our reporter saw.
Listen, we live in a purportedly free country. People must be entitled to believe and whatever they want to believe and mark
whatever they want to believe, not support for prescribed organisation.
No. You can have inside your head whatever belief you want to say. If you say it out loud, it makes no difference. There is no such thing as thought crime in this country. So
of course not, nor should there be.
No, fine. So people are literally entitled to believe whatever they want to believe inside their heads.
There was a woman who was arrested for praying outside an abortion clinic, for praying in her head. Do Do you remember that?
Well, look, if we want to have a general discussion about the criminal threshold for free speech, that's an entirely... I'm very happy to have that discussion, because I actually think there should be an extremely high bar for prosecuting people for chants and placards, because even if I disagree with something, I don't think that we should necessarily ruin people's lives and throw them into jail for saying things that I think are particularly hateful on either side of it. I don't think that someone sort of, being a far-right person means that they should be thrown in jail unless they are doing things that are directly inciting violence or being violent themselves, as we saw yesterday. So look, if people want to observe a silence, obviously I observe a silence. I think it's important, but I think that we've got it to this stage where we sort of are imposing that belief on other people.
No,
I think it's very possible to go and feel incredibly sad about the sacrifices that were made by people in the First World War and the Second World War and wars since. Ordinary people who were sent to their deaths by governments who often didn't care about them, particularly in the First World War. And I think that it's possible to do that outside of a 2-minute silence if people in that time. So I don't think we can read anything into that particular action.
Okay, let's talk to Chris in Buckinghamshire, who has given me a call on 0344 499 1000. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good morning, Peter.
Morning.
I just wanted to thank each and every British man that came down to make sure Armistice Day went ahead well. I don't think they're hooligans, thugs. I think that they're British men who would fight for this country.
Listen, if people are peaceful, they can do whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want to believe. But there were people who were arrested for throwing what the police term missiles at them. They're not patriotic, are they?
I think that the police and the government don't stand up for British people, and the police don't respect British people.
Attacking the police? Is that British? Attacking the police, Chris?
I don't care what those lads did.
No, sorry, Chris. I got to disagree with you on this one.
Thank you, lads, for coming down for great British people.
Okay, Chris, thanks for your thoughts on that. I'm afraid, look, you can believe whatever you want to believe. If there are people at the Senate half yesterday who were peaceful, absolutely fine, no problem whatsoever. Attack the police? No, not happy with that. That is not good British behaviour. That is not being a good citizen. Sorry, Chris. Thanks for your call, but I'm afraid I disagree with you on that one. Jill is in Cornwall. Jill, what would you like to say? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Peter. Listen, I'm listening to this debate, if that's what you want to call it. I do believe, and I agree with every single solitary word that Ben is saying. And Jonathan doesn't appear to be listening. This Israeli problem, this Palestinian problem, started because Hamas decided to do what they did. They started this. They fired the first shot.
I totally agree with you, Jill. I suppose the question I have is what Israel is doing now. And listen, if I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Hamas terrorists die, I will be shedding no tears. But I do worry about the innocent civilians in Gaza. I do worry about people in those hospitals who are being used for propaganda purposes by Hamas. There's no doubt about that. But I do worry about the innocent civilians on both sides.
I also worry, but that is what war is. War is, it doesn't pick out the people that need to be shot or driven out. Unfortunately, when you drop a bomb or you fire a shot, whoever is there will die.
But there are ways of there are ways of targeting these things. There are military strategies. We've talked about that on the programme sometimes, that you can seek out Hamas leaders, hopefully without civilian casualties.
Why don't the people... Why don't the people of Gaza, let everyone know who these Hamas leaders are, who these people are that started this war? Why do not the people of the country tell us who these people are that are...
Let's hear what Ben Habib has to say on that. That'll bring in Jonathon Lis.
Well, I was just going to say two things. That the senior Hamas leaders are sitting in Qatar and Tehran, and it's their operatives on the ground, and the operatives have embedded themselves in hospitals. They've surrounded themselves by civilians in order to exacerbate the death toll. That's why I say Hamas is such an evil entity. It is prepared to go in, behead children, pregnant mothers, completely innocent people in a kibbutz peacefully minding their own business in order to engender this reaction. That's what they wanted. They wanted Israel to attack them.
Everyone that has spoken, who is in that march, every person that has spoken has criticised the Israelis for defending their race, for defending their country, for defending their people.
Okay, Jill, let's hear from Jonathon Lis here.
I don't want to hear anything about defending race. This is a really dangerous language. No one is denying what Hamas, or some people are denying, and I condemn those people forcefully, people who deny what Hamas did. Obviously, what Hamas did on the 7th of October was completely atrocious, and no one expected that would go without some kind of response. What we are talking about is the proportionality of that response and the people who get in the way. It is not acceptable to say, war is war, and if a bomb drops, then the people who will die will die. You wouldn't accept that if this was a conversation about your family. Why should we accept it about Palestinian people who have simply had the misfortune to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? That is not acceptable. 11,000 people have been
Let's
killed.
hear Jill's response to that.
Remembrance Sunday is celebrating the fact that those people marching past the cenotaph are people that have defended this country. They've lived through the bombing, the shooting, the demolition of this country, defending us, the people that live here, from the people that want to destroy the country and the people. That is what a war is about.
Okay, Jill.
And I'm sorry, Peter. I find it really upsetting, the fact that people don't appear to understand that Israel is being targeted and almost wiped out simply because these supporters have got it in their heads that Israel is the problem and not Hamas, and Hamas are the problem.
Jill, thanks.
Will be.
Okay, Jill, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. That's Jill in Cornwall there. Mick has texted in to say the frontline officers from around the country did a good job, but the situation was caused by Rowley's double standards and stubborn ego. We'll get more into the kind of policing debate of this after the break. Dan in Kent says, hi Peter, your first texture pretty much sums it up. The country is losing its values. Paula in Kent says, I would like to understand from Jonathon why, if anyone who wants peace and goes on the march and does not have far left views, why would you wave a placard given to you by the Socialist Workers' Party who are definitely anti-Jewish? I find that chanting disgusting. Well, Jonathon, I'm not going to ask you to defend the actions of 300,000 people, but what do you make of what Paula has to say there?
Look, obviously you'll find a lot of people who go on these marches are left-wing. These are left-wing values to sort of champion the oppressed and sort of call out power where they see it. And clearly there is a gross abuse of power happening right now where sort of people are being bombed in their thousands and being killed on a daily basis. You don't have to be left-wing or right-wing to oppose that. You don't need to be even Israeli or Palestinian to have an opinion on that. People are responding as people to say, whatever else, let's stop this from happening right now. Obviously, there are nuances to this conversation. Obviously, no one is calling on only one side to act. But this is a human response to say, this is a terrible, terrible thing that we are seeing before our eyes. It's not even helping Israel, by the way. Even if you take it on Israel's purely narrow strategic objectives, this is not going to make Israel safer. Every single bomb that's dropped is going to radicalise more Palestinians and more Arab people against Israel.